returned home after what felt like a lifetime away. Every moment spent overseas, I dreamed of Liza, my wife, the one person who made the distance and the chaos bearable. Her letters, her voice on the rare phone calls, her promises of love, they were my anchor. I wanted my return to be unforgettable. A surprise that would remind her how much she meant to me. For this, I called Amalia, my best friend since we were kids. She was the person I trusted most after Liza, and I knew she'd make it perfect. "You've got this, David," Amalia said as we finished hanging decorations in the living room. Streamers crisscrossed the ceiling, a massive "Welcome Home" banner stretched above the fireplace, and photos of Liza and me from happier times were placed on every surface. "She's going to be so surprised," I said, though the words felt more like a prayer than a certainty. "She better be," Amalia said, her tone sharper than I expected. That edge in her voice caught me off guard, but I brushed it aside. Amalia had been acting a little strange lately, distant, distracted. Maybe she was just nervous for me. The plan was simple. I'd hide in the living room and jump out when Liza walked through the door. Amalia would wait by the corner to capture the moment on video. It was supposed to be perfect, a memory we could cherish forever. But something felt off. Liza hadn't been answering my calls as much in the last few months. She'd said work had been overwhelming, and I believed her. Or maybe I just wanted to believe her. As we waited, Amalia's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her expression tightening. "Everything okay?" I asked. "She's running late," Amalia muttered, not looking at me. My stomach twisted. It wasn't like Liza to run late, especially when she didn't know I was coming. I crouched behind the couch, heart pounding, trying to push the unease from my mind. Finally, I heard a car pull into the driveway. Relief surged through me. This was it. But then Amalia, who was stationed by the window, froze. "What is it?" I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's not just her," Amalia said, her voice trembling. I moved to the window, my breath catching as I saw Liza stepping out of the car, laughing, carefree, and Kevin, Amalia's husband, climbing out after her. They walked toward the house together, their steps too close, their laughter too intimate. My heart began to pound for an entirely different reason. "Amalia, tell me I'm imagining things," I said, though the words felt hollow. Amalia didn't answer. Instead, she raised her phone, her hands shaking as she hit record. And then it happened. Just before they reached the door, Kevin leaned in, and Liza met him halfway. They kissed. The moment I saw Liza and Kevin kiss, my heart stopped. It wasn't just a quick, careless peck. It was slow, deliberate, a kiss that told me everything I needed to know. I felt frozen, trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Beside me, Amalia's breath hitched as she kept filming, her phone trembling in her hands. She didn't say a word, but the pain etched on her face mirrored my own. They've been doing this for a while," she finally whispered, her voice hollow. Her words cut through the silence like a knife. I turned away from the window, my fists clenching at my sides. "How long, Amalia?" She hesitated, her eyes darting to the floor. "I don't know for sure. But I've had my suspicions for months." Months. The word echoed in my mind, filling it with a boiling rage. Liza and I had exchanged countless letters during my deployment. Letters where she promised to wait for me, where she told me how much she loved and missed me. All lies. And Kevin? He was my friend. Or at least, I thought he was. The same man who'd helped Amalia pick out a gift for me on my last birthday. The man I'd trusted with more than I could count. "How could you not tell me?" I asked, my voice sharp and bitter. Amalia flinched. "I didn't know how. You were halfway around the world, David. I didn't want to break you when you couldn't do anything about it. The room felt stifling, the decorations mocking me now. The balloons, the photos, the banner, everything screamed of a life I thought I had, a life I clearly didn't. What are we going to do? Amalia asked, her voice trembling. We're not doing anything, I said, my jaw tight. This is between me and Liza. Amalia looked like she wanted to argue but thought better of it. Instead, she nodded, stepping aside as I headed for the door. The sound of the front door unlocking sent a jolt through my body. They were here. My wife and the man she was betraying me with were walking into the very house I'd worked so hard to return to. I crouched back behind the couch, anger and adrenaline surging through me. I had to see this through. I had to hear what they'd say, how they'd explain themselves, if they even bothered to. The door creaked open, and their laughter filled the air. So, what are you going to tell him when he calls? Kevin asked, his voice casual, as if discussing the weather. Liza's response was like a slap to the face. The same thing I always do, that work's been crazy, and I miss him. It's not like he's going to show up anytime soon. Her words twisted the knife already lodged in my chest. My hands clenched into fists, nails biting into my palms as I fought to keep silent. You don't think he suspects anything? Kevin asked. David? Please, Liza scoffed. He's too trusting for his own good. And even if he did, he's halfway around the world. What's he going to do about it? She laughed. They both did. And that was the moment I knew I couldn't wait any longer. The sound of their laughter was gasoline on a fire already raging inside me. My pulse thundered in my ears as I heard them move further into the house, their voices growing closer. I still can't believe you're going to pull this off, Kevin said, chuckling. What choice do I have? Liza replied, her tone flippant. David's nice, sure, but he's not you. Once he gets back, I'll figure something out. My vision blurred with fury, but I forced myself to stay still, biding my time. I had to wait for the right moment to strike. From my hiding spot behind the couch, I could see them now. Liza leaned against the dining table, Kevin standing close enough to kiss her again. I wanted to leap out, to scream, to demand answers, but then I saw it. The banner. It was stretched above the fireplace, glaring down at them like a witness to their treachery. Welcome home, hero. And that's when I realized, this wasn't just betrayal. This was mockery. They weren't just hurting me, they were enjoying it. Kevin reached for Liza's hand, running his thumb over her palm. He won't even see it coming. Oh, he'll never have a clue, Liza said with a smirk. And that was it. The moment the last shred of restraint snapped inside me. I stepped out from behind the couch, slow and deliberate, letting the floor creak beneath my boots. You sure about that? The room froze. Liza's eyes widened in horror, and Kevin turned pale as a ghost. For a split second, they just stared, like two criminals caught red-handed, and then Liza tried to recover. David, she stammered, forcing a fake smile. You're back early. I ignored her, my eyes boring into Kevin. What's wrong, Kev? Cat got your tongue? Kevin backed away instinctively, his hands raised. David, this isn't what it looks like. Really? I said, my voice sharp as a blade. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're screwing my wife in the house I paid for. David, please, Liza began, stepping forward, but I silenced her with a raised hand. No, I snapped. You don't get to talk. Not after this. I gestured around the room, the decorations, the photos, the banner. I came home to surprise you, Liza. To show you how much I missed you. And instead, I find this. I turned back to Kevin, my fists itching to swing. And you're supposed to be my friend. You've been in my house, sat at my table, shared meals with me, while you stabbed me in the back. Kevin stammered, I didn't. Shut up, I barked, my voice echoing off the walls. You're not a man. You're a coward who preys on what's not yours. Liza stepped between us, tears streaming down her face. David, please, we can talk about this. But I wasn't interested in talking. Instead, I pulled my phone from my pocket, holding it up so they could see the screen. The video Amalia had filmed earlier played in vivid, damning clarity. You want to explain this? I asked coldly. Liza gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Kevin cursed under his breath. I didn't give them time to answer. Here's the twist, Liza, I said, my voice dropping to a deadly calm. You thought I was halfway across the world, blind and clueless. But I've been back for a week. And in that time, I've seen more than enough. What do you mean? Liza whispered, her voice trembling. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a slim manila folder. I hired someone to follow you. And Kevin. I threw the folder onto the table. Photos spilled out, pictures of their stolen kisses, their secret meetings, even a hotel receipt in Kevin's name. Every lie you've told, I said, my voice trembling with fury. Every betrayal, it's all here. And you know what's coming next. Liza's face crumpled. David, don't. Divorce, I spat. You're done. I'm done. But don't worry, I made sure the lawyer put in a little something extra for you. I leaned closer, my voice low and venomous. Infidelity clauses are a beautiful thing. Liza sobbed, falling to her knees. Kevin, ever the coward, edged toward the door. You're not walking out of here, I growled. I let them both stew in their shame for a moment before walking to the door myself. I flung it open to reveal Amalia standing outside, phone still in hand. She had recorded every word. Hope you two enjoyed your little secret, I said, stepping past them. Because it's not a secret anymore. And with that, I walked away, leaving their shattered world behind me. I walked out of that house, leaving Liza and Kevin to face the wreckage they'd created. My chest heaved with adrenaline, anger, and an emptiness I couldn't yet name. Amalia followed me silently, the only sound her phone vibrating in her hand. They deserve everything coming to them, she said finally, her voice cold. They'll get it, I replied, but my tone betrayed the lingering ache I couldn't shake. Betrayed by my wife. Betrayed by a man I'd called a friend. We reached my truck parked down the street. As I opened the door, Amalia grabbed my arm. David, wait. I turned to her, and that's when I saw the hesitation in her eyes. What is it? There's something I need to tell you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I froze. What are you talking about, Amalia? She looked away, her lips trembling. It's about Kevin. What about him? I asked, my frustration rising again. Her next words hit me like a freight train. He's not just cheating with Liza. He's been cheating on me too. The world tilted. What? Amalia's hands balled into fists. I found out 2 months ago. I didn't know who it was with until today. I hired a private investigator too, but I didn't have solid proof until now. My head spun. You knew, and you didn't tell me? I didn't know how to tell you, she said, her voice cracking. You were overseas, David. I thought if I told you, it would destroy you. And I wasn't even sure I could handle it myself. I leaned against the truck, trying to process what I'd just heard. Kevin had been living a double betrayal, of me, of Amalia. The magnitude of it all felt suffocating. I don't even know what to say, I admitted. You don't have to say anything, Amalia said, her voice firm now. But I'm done playing nice. Liza might grovel, and Kevin might try to weasel his way out of this, but I won't let them walk away unscathed. She pulled out her phone, scrolling quickly. I'm leaking the footage, she said, her eyes blazing. Everyone's going to know the truth. Amalia, wait, I started to protest, but it was too late. She tapped a button and looked up at me with determination. It's done, she said. Within minutes, the betrayal was public. Amalia had uploaded the video of Liza and Kevin's kiss, accompanied by a scathing caption that left no room for interpretation. I didn't have time to react before my phone started buzzing. Calls, messages, social media notifications, it was chaos. But before I could answer any of them, Amalia's phone buzzed too. She looked at the screen, her expression darkening. It's Kevin, she said, showing me the caller ID. Don't answer it, I snapped. She ignored me, picking up anyway. What do you want? She said coldly. Kevin's panicked voice crackled through the speaker. Amalia, you don't understand. This isn't what it looks like. You're a coward and a liar, she interrupted. What exactly am I misunderstanding? The part where you betrayed your best friend and your wife, or the part where you thought you wouldn't get caught? Kevin hesitated, his breathing ragged. I made a mistake, okay? Just take the video down. We can talk about this. You think I care about what you want? Amalia snapped. You're lucky I don't send this to your boss and ruin your career too. The line went silent for a moment before Kevin's tone changed. You don't know what you're doing, Amalia. This could hurt you just as much as me. Amalia's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Kevin's next words sent a chill down both our spines. You think I'm the only one keeping secrets? Maybe you should ask David about his little deployment surprise. My stomach dropped. What the hell are you talking about, Kevin? Ask Amalia, Kevin said smugly before hanging up. I turned to Amalia, confusion and suspicion swirling inside me. What is he talking about? Amalia looked like she'd seen a ghost. David, I don't know. But her trembling hands told me otherwise. Amalia, I said, my voice low and dangerous. What aren't you telling me? She hesitated, her eyes filling with tears. It's not what you think. Then tell me, I demanded. Amalia took a shaky breath. When you were deployed, Liza, she tried to get me to cover for her. I told her no, David. I swear. But I didn't tell you because I didn't want to lose you too. Her words hit like a sucker punch. You knew she was cheating before I came back. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I didn't know for sure. I suspected. But I didn't know how to tell you, David. You were already going through so much, and I thought. I cut her off, stepping back as if her confession burned. You thought what? That lying to me was better? That letting me come home to this circus was somehow kind? I didn't want to be the one to break you, she said, her voice barely audible. Well, congratulations, I said bitterly. You didn't have to. Kevin and Liza beat you to it. And with that, I got into my truck and drove away, leaving Amalia standing alone in the wreckage of our friendship. The drive away from Amalia and the chaos she'd helped unravel felt endless. My mind swirled with anger, betrayal, and exhaustion. The two people I trusted most in the world had shattered everything I thought was real. I pulled into a deserted parking lot, killed the engine, and sat there, staring into the darkness. I felt hollow. My life, my marriage, even my friendships, it all felt like a carefully constructed lie, now crumbled to nothing. But Kevin's cryptic words haunted me. You don't know what you're doing, Amalia. Ask David about his little deployment surprise. What the hell had he meant by that? My phone buzzed, dragging me out of my thoughts. It was another call from Liza. I ignored it, tossing the phone onto the passenger seat. But then another call came in, this time from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I picked up. "David," a woman's voice said, shaking slightly. "It's me, Emily." "Emily?" It took me a moment to place the name. "Kevin's sister." "What do you want?" I asked, my voice hard. I need to tell you something," she said, her voice trembling. "I saw the video Amalia posted. And I thought you deserved to know the truth." "About what?" I snapped. Emily hesitated, then took a deep breath. "About Kevin. About Liza. And about Amalia." My stomach tightened. "What about Amalia?" "She's not as innocent as you think," Emily said. "Kevin wasn't just cheating with Liza. Amalia, she—" "Spit it out," I demanded. "She and Kevin were involved too," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. The words hit like a lightning bolt. "That's impossible," I said, shaking my head. "I wish it were," Emily said. "But I saw them together. More than once. It wasn't just physical either. She told him things, David. Things about you." "What things?" I asked, my voice rising. "She told him you were planning to surprise Liza. That's how he knew to come over tonight. She helped him plan it, David. I don't know why, but she did." I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. It couldn't be true. Amalia couldn't have betrayed me like that, not on top of everything else. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice cold. "Because you don't deserve to be kept in the dark anymore," Emily said. "And because I think Amalia's been lying to you for a long time." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my mind spinning. Could it be true? Could Amalia, the one person I thought was on my side, have been working against me all along? I started the truck and drove, my hands trembling on the wheel. I didn't know where I was going until I found myself parked in front of Amalia's house. The lights were on, and her car was in the driveway. My pulse pounded as I stepped out and banged on the door. Amalia opened it, her face pale and tear-streaked. "David." "Don't," I cut her off, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "You're going to tell me the truth, Amalia. And you're going to tell me now." Her eyes widened. "What are you talking about?" "Kevin," I said, my voice like ice. "You and Kevin. Were you sleeping with him?" She flinched, her silence stretching into an eternity. "Answer me." I roared. "Yes," she finally whispered, tears streaming down her face. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "Why?" "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said, her voice breaking. "It was a mistake. One I regretted the moment it started. But it ended months ago, David. I swear. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to lose you." "You didn't want to lose me?" I said, laughing bitterly. "You were helping him betray me. You told him about my plans, didn't you?" Amalia's silence was answer enough. My chest felt like it was going to explode. "You're just as bad as them," I said, shaking my head. "No, you're worse. Because you pretended to care. You pretended to be my friend while you were stabbing me in the back." "I do care," she said desperately, grabbing my arm. "David, I've always cared. That's why I'm telling you the truth now." I pulled my arm away, my disgust overpowering any lingering shred of sympathy. "You don't know what truth is." And with that, I walked out, slamming the door behind me. I drove away from Amalia's house, my mind spinning, my heart a storm of fury and disbelief. Amalia's confession hit me harder than I thought possible. Her betrayal felt different, sharper, more personal. She was supposed to be my rock, the one person I could count on, and now she was just another knife in my back. The betrayal didn't stop with Liza or Kevin. It was everywhere, an infestation rotting my entire life. My phone buzzed relentlessly as I drove. Calls from unknown numbers, texts from people I hadn't spoken to in years. The video Amalia had posted was spreading like wildfire, and my humiliating nightmare was becoming everyone's entertainment. I pulled over to a gas station, slamming the truck into park. I couldn't think straight. My hands shook as I scrolled through the endless stream of messages. One, from Kevin, stood out. "You don't know the whole story. Call me before you do something stupid." I nearly laughed out loud. Kevin, trying to act like the voice of reason? The audacity of that message lit a fresh fire inside me. Against my better judgment, I hit call. He answered on the first ring. "David," he started, his voice carefully measured. "We need to talk." "Talk?" I growled. "What could you possibly have to say that I want to hear?" "I know you're angry." "Angry doesn't even cover it," I snapped. "You slept with my wife, you traitorous bastard. Then you used my best friend to help you. So tell me, Kevin, what part of this am I misunderstanding?" Kevin sighed, and for a moment, I thought he might actually grovel. But instead, his voice turned cold. "You're not as innocent as you think, David." I froze. What the hell does that mean? You think Liza and I just happened? That it started because I was some snake who slithered into your life? Kevin said, his tone sharpening. "No, David. She came to me. She was lonely, miserable, and you. Don't you dare try to blame this on me," I growled. "Listen to me." Kevin snapped. "She was unhappy for a long time. And you? You weren't exactly the picture-perfect husband, were you? How many nights did you leave her hanging while you drank with your buddies? How many times did you brush her off to focus on your career?" My knuckles whitened as I gripped the phone. This is the lamest excuse I've ever heard. You think you can justify stabbing me in the back because I wasn't perfect? Kevin's voice turned smug. You don't have to believe me, but deep down, you know it's true. She found someone who gave her attention, who listened. And Amalia? She's no angel either. Don't pretend you didn't notice the way she looked at you, David. She's been in love with you for years. The accusation hit like a gut punch. Shut up, I barked, though part of me wondered if there was truth in his words. Kevin laughed bitterly. Face it, David. Your whole life is a web of lies. None of us were ever who you thought we were. And maybe, just maybe, you're not as much the victim as you think. That was it. The final straw. You're a coward, Kevin, I spat. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who you are. I hung up before he could respond, my chest heaving. But his words lingered, crawling under my skin. Had I missed the signs? Had I pushed Liza away without realizing it? Had Amalia been hiding feelings all this time? No. I couldn't let myself spiral. This wasn't on me. But the truth was, the more I uncovered, the more tangled everything became. My life wasn't just unraveling, it was a full-blown implosion. I needed a plan, some way to regain control of the situation. My thoughts turned to the folder in my glove box, the one from the private investigator. It held every detail about Liza and Kevin's affair, and if Kevin wanted to play the blame game, I could play it better. I opened the folder and flipped through the evidence until something caught my eye, a name. A name I hadn't seen before. A sharp chill ran down my spine. Emma was Kevin's ex, someone he'd never talked about in detail. But there she was, mentioned in a string of texts between Kevin and Liza. Kevin, Emma would love this. Too bad she's not as fun as you. Liza, don't be mean. She's sweet. Sweet? What the hell was Liza doing talking about Kevin's ex? My curiosity got the better of me. I googled Emma, finding a profile that matched the little I knew about her. She lived in a nearby town and ran a small cafe. Before I could think twice, I started the truck and drove. If Kevin and Liza wanted to accuse me of being blind, then maybe it was time I opened my eyes. By the time I reached Emma's cafe, it was closing. I stepped inside, my nerves on edge. A woman at the counter looked up, startled. "Can I help you? Are you Emma?" I asked. She nodded warily. "Yes, who's asking?" "I'm David," I said, my voice steady. "We need to talk." "About Kevin." Her eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering across her face. "What about him?" "I think we've both been lied to," I said. "And I think it's time we figure out why." Emma stared at me, her brow furrowed with a mix of confusion and skepticism. "What do you mean, we've been lied to?" I took a deep breath. "Kevin. He's been cheating on my wife, Liza, with my best friend, Amalia, too. And based on these messages I found, you might know more about this than I do." Her face paled. She set down the coffee mug she'd been cleaning. "Kevin and I broke up years ago. Whatever's going on now doesn't involve me." "Maybe not," I said, sliding the screenshots of the texts across the counter. "But he's still talking about you." Emma picked up the papers, scanning them quickly. Her face hardened as she read Kevin's flippant mention of her. "That son of a..." She stopped, her voice trembling. "What does this have to do with me? Why are you here?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But something about this doesn't add up. I had no idea Kevin even talked to you after your breakup. And the way Liza is defending you in this text, it's weird." Emma's lips pressed into a thin line. Of course she'd defend me. She and Kevin ruined my life. My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, clearly debating whether to say more. Finally, she sighed. "Kevin didn't just cheat on me, David. He cheated on me with Liza. That's why we broke up." The world tilted under my feet. "What?" Emma crossed her arms, anger flashing in her eyes. "I didn't know at first. He was good at covering his tracks. But eventually, I found the texts, the late-night phone calls. He admitted it when I confronted him. Liza was the reason we ended." I couldn't breathe. "How long ago was this?" 2 years, Emma said, her voice sharp. "It started when you were deployed. And from what Kevin told me, it didn't end after I left." I stumbled back, feeling as if I'd been punched. 2 years? You're telling me Liza has been lying to me for 2 years? Emma nodded grimly. "I thought you knew. That's why I was surprised you stayed with her. But seeing you here now, I guess you didn't." My mind raced, piecing together the timeline. If Liza and Kevin had been involved 2 years ago, then everything Liza told me, the confessions, the apologies, had been a carefully crafted lie. "She played me," I said, my voice trembling with rage. "She played me this whole time." Emma reached across the counter, her voice softening. "David, I'm sorry. I've been through it, too. I know how it feels to be blindsided like this." But her words barely registered. The realization of how deep Liza's betrayal went was consuming me. It wasn't just a recent affair, it was a calculated, long-term deception. And Amalia? Had she known all along and kept it from me? As if reading my thoughts, Emma spoke again. "David, if Kevin is still tangled up in your life, you need to be careful. He's not just a cheater, he's dangerous." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" Emma hesitated, then leaned in closer. "After I broke up with him, Kevin tried to sabotage me. He spread lies about me to my family, my friends, even my job. He wanted to destroy me for leaving him. If he feels cornered, he'll lash out. And it sounds like you've got him cornered. Her warning sent a chill down my spine. Kevin had always been charming, but now I saw him for what he truly was, a manipulator, willing to do whatever it took to save himself. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced at the screen. It was Amalia. Of course, I muttered, debating whether to answer. You should take it, Emma said, her expression wary. I pressed the button and put the phone to my ear. What do you want, Amalia? Her voice was frantic. David, you need to come back. It's Kevin, he's at my house. What? I snapped, my body tensing. He's out of control, Amalia said, her words tumbling out in a panic. He knows you called Emma, and he's losing it. He's threatening to expose everything. I froze. What do you mean, everything? Amalia hesitated. It's complicated. Just get here, David. Please. The line went dead. Emma's eyes were on me, her expression serious. What's going on? I don't know, I admitted, already heading for the door. But I'm going to find out. Emma grabbed her keys and followed me. I'm coming with you. You don't have to do this, I said, glancing at her. She shrugged. Maybe not. But Kevin owes me some answers, too. As we drove to Amalia's house, a storm brewed in my chest. Whatever Kevin was hiding, it was bigger than I'd realized. And I was about to uncover it all. Amalia's house was lit up like a beacon as we pulled into the driveway. The sound of shouting spilled out into the night, and my chest tightened as I stepped out of the truck. Emma was right behind me, her face set in determination. As we approached the door, it flew open, and Kevin stormed out, his face red with rage. He froze when he saw me. David, he said, his voice dripping with mockery. Here to play the hero again? Get out of my way, I growled, stepping toward the door. But Kevin didn't move. Instead, he smirked, blocking my path. What's the rush? Amalia's just inside, spinning her sob story. Did she tell you how she's been playing you this whole time? Move, I said, my voice like ice. You really think you're innocent in all this? Kevin spat. You're just as guilty as the rest of us. All of this is because of you, David. You left her. You left Liza. You left all of us to chase some hero fantasy. His words stung, but I didn't let them show. You're pathetic, I said, shoving past him and into the house. Amalia was in the living room, pacing like a trapped animal. Her face lit up when she saw me. David, thank God, she said, rushing over. Enough, I said, holding up a hand. What's going on, Amalia? What did you mean about Kevin threatening to expose everything? Her eyes flickered to Kevin, who had followed me inside, then to Emma, who stood silently by the door. David, there's something I need to tell you, she said, her voice trembling. Spit it out, I snapped. Amalia hesitated, then dropped her gaze. Kevin's not just a cheater. He's been using Liza. Blackmailing her. The room went still. What? I said, my voice low and dangerous. Kevin laughed darkly from the doorway. Oh, come on, Amalia. Don't act like you're some saint. You were in on it too. Shut up. Amalia screamed, her voice cracking. My heart pounded as I pieced it together. What are you talking about, Kevin? What blackmail? Kevin leaned casually against the wall, his smug grin widening. Liza and I had a little arrangement. She thought she was being clever, keeping her secret life from you. But I made sure she couldn't get away clean. Photos. Messages. Enough dirt to ruin her in every way that mattered. She paid to keep it quiet. Not just money, either. I felt sick. You blackmailed my wife into sleeping with you? She didn't take much convincing, Kevin sneered. She wanted me, David. You just weren't enough for her. I moved before I realized it, grabbing Kevin by the collar and slamming him against the wall. You're a monster, I growled. David. Amalia cried, pulling at my arm. I released him, letting him slump to the floor, gasping for air. That's not all, Emma said, her voice cutting through the chaos. Everyone turned to her as she held up a small USB drive. Kevin didn't just blackmail Liza. He's been running scams for years, embezzling money, forging signatures, you name it. I've been collecting evidence ever since we broke up. Kevin's face paled. You don't have proof, he spat. Emma smiled coldly. I have plenty. And now David does too. She handed me the USB. What's on this? I asked. Everything, she said. Every dirty deal he's ever made. Including what he's been doing to Liza. Kevin lunged for her, but I intercepted him, throwing him back onto the floor. You're done, Kevin, I said, my voice calm but lethal. He looked up at me, his confidence crumbling. You think you can take me down? Go ahead. You'll destroy Liza in the process. A dangerous smile crept across my face. That's where you're wrong. I turned to Amalia. Call Liza. Tell her to get over here now. Amalia hesitated, but one look at my face was enough. She grabbed her phone and made the call. When Liza arrived, her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. David, she started, but I cut her off. Sit down, I said, my tone brooking no argument. For the next hour, I laid everything bare, the affair, the blackmail, the scams. I showed her the USB, the evidence Emma had collected, the photos from my investigator. Liza's tears started as soon as I mentioned Kevin's manipulation, but I didn't let up. Kevin thinks he can destroy you, I said finally. But I'm not going to let him. Liza looked up at me, broken and ashamed. What do you mean? I've already called the police, I said. They're on their way. Kevin's going to prison. And as for you, well, I think it's time we settled this marriage once and for all. Her sobs grew louder, but I felt nothing. No pity. No love. Just the cold satisfaction of justice being served. When the police arrived, Kevin tried to fight, but it was over. They hauled him out in cuffs, and as the door closed behind him, the room fell into silence. Amalia tried to speak, but I held up a hand. We're done, Amalia. Don't call me. Don't text me. You're as much a part of this as he was. I turned to Liza, who sat trembling in her chair. I'll have the divorce papers drawn up tomorrow, I said. And I suggest you sign them before I decide to include everything I know in court. And with that, I walked out, leaving them to face the ruins of their lives. As I stepped into the cool night air, Emma followed me. What now? She asked. I looked at her, the only person who had been honest with me through it all. Now, I start over, I said. Without them. Emma nodded, a faint smile on her lips. Good. You deserve better. And for the first time in years, I believed her.